Hi, I'm Dan Major for Life the Basic Manual, and we've been speaking about recovery from addiction and chronic pain from the standpoint of mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual aspects. That since addiction and chronic pain involve how we think, how we feel, what's happening in our bodies, as well as our spiritual condition, that recovery from these chronic co-occurring disorders has to encompass all four of these areas. And previously I spoke specifically about the areas of our mental and emotional functioning and how these relate to addiction and chronic pain, as well as how we can use them as part of our recovery process. Now we'll focus on the physical area of life as it relates to recovery. Now, what happens with chronic pain in particular is that we don't feel like moving, typically. Movement is associated with increased pain. Chronic pain is also exhausting. There's a lot of fatigue connected with it. That's true with addiction and very early recovery as well. So it turns out that movement is the body's internal lubricant. And for instance, one of the things that happens when we move our joints, wrists, elbows, knees, and shoulders, it facilitates the release of synovial fluid, which is a viscous fluid within our joints that provides a literal lubricant of sorts. So even when we don't feel like it, it's really important to force ourselves to move in ways that are consistent with our capacity. And by pushing ourselves to move even a little bit, we tend to improve our functional capacity. A body in motion tends to stay in motion. Movement begets more movement. One of the big problems with lack of movement, with staying sedentary, because we're concerned about evoking more pain, is that it then becomes harder to move. We become more stiff, and when we do move, it's more painful. So it's really critical to move in whatever ways we can. Now that includes walking, including mindful walking, walking slowly, carefully, and consciously. As Thich Nhat Hanh, the venerable Buddhist monk who's credited with translating mindfulness practices to the West to a great extent, has put it, walk like your feet are kissing the earth. We don't have to walk far, and we certainly don't have to walk fast, but simply to walk and to stretch. Stretching is so important to loosen the different joints in the body. Practices such as mild exercise, yoga, and qigong, which is a Chinese mind-body meditation that's been used to promote health and healing in China for millennia, is a very gentle, rhythmic way of stretching and moving the body. And finding that sweet spot between pushing ourselves enough so that we break out of our particular boxes of comfort and familiarity related to physical movement, to stretch our capacity, while at the same time not pushing ourselves so far that we risk further injury or creating problems for ourselves, is a function of learning and practice. And that's something that we can become increasingly skillful at by learning what works for us and practicing it with persistence and with dedication. But by all means, in whatever ways that you can, it's really important to push ourselves to move, sometimes even when we don't want to. And what we find is that all processes of meaningful change and healing involve doing things we may necessarily want to, we may necessarily find comfortable, but ultimately that which can be incredibly beneficial for us. And in our next segment, I'll speak specifically about bringing spiritual practices to bear in the process of recovery from addiction and chronic pain.